All right, Mopar people, welcome back to the channel. I'm just Mopar Joe. Today we're going to figure out together how to put this aftermarket air conditioner in the 65 Coronet. So I do believe my best bet is going to be to split this up into different parts. Part one's basically going to be getting the bracketry bolted on the front of this engine. I did say it's a 65 Coronet. There is the original 318 poly in the floor. The owner has purchased this 360. So the 360 is going in the car. So I called Classic Auto Air and I explained to him exactly what I had. This is a 74 model 360, I believe. The bracketry and everything, these pulleys came with it. They sold me these brackets and they have a list of installation instructions here. We'll look at that in a minute. There's our compressor. I believe that is a, what does it say, Sandon SD7H13. There's a model number, 134A. This is a universal kit. So basically everything I'm showing you here, you can use if you were putting a, if you wanted to convert anything to having an air conditioner, this video should help you because I'm learning along the way. I've done a kit before that was a direct bolt in, but this one actually takes a little bit of modification, so shouldn't be that bad. Let's go back to our bracket. The installation instructions for what we got going on here. You can see with our pulleys, we're going to hit the alternator, the air conditioner, and then down to the crankshaft. The other pulley will be water pump, crankshaft, power steering pump. So this car will have power steering. All that works out great, or it should. This tells you what it works with. Aluminum water pump, LA engines, 70 and up. So this is the later model water pump. Excuse me. They just give you an example here of what will work and what will not work. Will not work on if your intake has a thermostat housing offset to the passenger side, M1, dual plane, single plane, etc. I'm not sure if this will work with an air gap. You'll have to check that. I'm using a Wind Stealth here, and the thermostat is pretty well centered in the intake. So it looks like I'll be good with my compressor if it sets here. It does give you special thermostat instructions, and we can check that. They want us to measure the thickness of the front of the intake just left of the bypass nipple to machine flat air intake. That thermostat housing bolts to most OEM aftermarket intakes measure 2.5 to 2.25. If your intake measures greater than 2.5, remove the thermostat housing for later modification. Tape measure just to the left of that. See, we are 3 1/8. So I went ahead and left this off anyway. I'm going to get a better thermostat housing that actually has an O-ring built into it so it will not leak like most of the aftermarket ones do. I got my first two brackets bolted up. This is pretty simple. That bolted to the front two bolts of the head, and a lot of your alternator brackets from earlier years or any time will have a bracket that goes from the front of the water pump, kind of triangulates off and then goes into one of those two holes there. So that would mount your alternator down here if it was a non-AC car. This bolt would also kind of hook into that bracket 1 and 2 to there. So right now I'm just going to leave it stuck in. Remember, all these bolts do go into water jackets, so I have some thread sealing tape here to use with those. I even left my nipple out here just so I can be sure everything mounts up nice, flush. I've got my two pulleys cleaned up nicely. Alternator's hanging in. This is how they describe mounting the alternator into those two brackets. And I may have to loosen these two just a hair to be able to squeeze that into here. I think, yeah. So I left that loose in the back. That was part of the directions, and we'll get to it in just a second. I want to go ahead and get the compressor mounted onto here. They give you a bracket kit with all the bolts. There's that part number. An A engine with power steering, so you have to tell them whether or not you have power steering. There's an extra bracket that goes in the back. We'll mount it up in just a second. Let me get the compressor mounted on next, and I'll show you these directions. So here's these directions that they give you, same sheet. This is page number 2. And instead of me reading all this to you, I'm just going to pan down very slowly If you need to pause, you can, so that you can read these yourself. But basically they give you all these parts, tells you how to install it, and that's what we're going to do. There we are. That should be long enough. Like I said, if you need to pause it for yourself, you can. There's our bracketry, front bracket, rear bracket, pretty straightforward. And our final page is this very crude drawing. Actually, it's not that bad, but it's kind of a cool schematic. I could probably learn faster from looking at this schematic than reading that entire last page, but I wanted to show you the page first instead of you being able to cheat and just look at this. So you'll see I've got spacers back here, just like it showed here. See those spacers? I'm sorry, yeah, one there, etc. They tell you what length bolts to use, where the washers go. Takes a little spacer right there. There you go. And here, excuse me, there and there, I will go ahead and get the compressor mounted up with its bolts, and then we can push forward and see what it looks like. And here's what we look like mounted up. I used their little bracket here, just a little 1/4 inch shim, goes up, hits that ear. It does say in the directions you can mount the compressor with the lines straight up, facing that way, or facing the driver's side. However you'd like to do it for the cleanest install. So I just put it this way because I figured my refrigerant lines may run out that way. It's very easy to just switch it over, switching those 4 bolts. But I got everything mounted up here. Alternator's tight-ish. I found this alternator bracket, bottom bracket, outside. I'm not sure if it's for a small block or not, but it looks really nice on here so far. This was just a belt that I had laying around, but this is how they prescribe the belt diagram, and they look pretty straight. Obviously you can shim here and go in and out, but that's how they recommended it. Outside pulley to the inside pulley, and then when you go down, see it skips the water pump and goes to the center pulley on the harmonic balancer. So the inside pulley of the balancer it said is not used. The outside pulley of this one is not used, and the inside pulley of your alternator is not used. You do have to have a dual pulley for the alternator like this one is. And power steering will bolt up, I believe, here and here, and hook off that outside pulley there. So 1 to 10, this is probably a 1 on the difficulty level of bolting this stuff up. The directions were pretty nice, I'll say that. If we check the thermostat housing, this is just a big block housing that I had grabbed, but I'm not going to use it. Bolt holes line up nicely looking down it, and it misses the compressor right there. You can see that little bit of rocking. Not bad. I want to say my old flange here on this thermostat housing is probably bad, so I'll get my new thermostat housing. It says you can grind just a little bit on your housing if you need to, but all this looks good. I believe I would have a hose that would come straight up and over, probably to the driver's side on the top hose, and I'll go passenger side on my bottom hose, and that should not give me any fits at all.